Hey, all my Gemini friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today with your April 2024 monthly horoscope. These horoscopes are based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I talk about Gemini, I'm talking about Gemini rising. This is also applicable to Gemini moon, Gemini sun, and if you have a stellium, which is 3 or more personal planets in the sign of Gemini, this video is also applicable to you. When I talk about the times and the days, I'm referring to Pacific time zone, so please adjust for your location. Well, Gemini, the month starts off with a bit of a bang. It's not only April Fool's Day, your ruling planet will go retrograde in the sign of Aries, and it will be retrograde for most of the month, traveling back through the sign of self, through the sign of my ego, my identity, how I perceive my physical body, and in many ways, how I perceive the physical experience. It's going to retrograde all the way back to 15 degrees before moving forward again. Aries is your 11th house of networks like the World Wide Web. It represents the things that are Aquarian, innovation, futuristic things, technology, astrology, the mass consciousness or the collective consciousness. It rules the nervous system. It rules your hopes and your dreams. But these things in this 11th house are hopes and dreams that have been nurtured and tended to over time and often blossom later in life's journey. So I say this because as Mercury is retrograding in your 11th house of Aries, this is going to be how you assert yourself in this way. How brave are you? Are you it's going to, the Mercury retrograde is going to have Gemini thinking about how you are asserting yourself, thinking about, am I being brave or not? It's very much a time of reflection and of review so that you can fine tune things. It's not necessarily an opportune time to birth something, but at the same time, if you've been working on something, integrating new elements into this is not necessarily negative. This retrograde starts at the Gemini degree and goes all the way back to 15 degrees, which is also a Gemini degree. So this is very much about self-talk, self-thought in relation to how you perceive the viability of your hopes, your dreams, and your value to the masses, your influence to many. That's what I would say, because it's your 11th house. Now, at the same time that this Mercury retrograde is gearing up, we see that Jupiter and Uranus are really having a pretty intense conversation. Taurus is your 12th house. This is the house of money. It's also the 12th house is a house of it's the last house of the zodiac where there's a certain amount of endings to afford more elevated or evolved or aware new beginnings. And in the sign of Taurus, I would think this would have to do with your self-worth, using your skills, potentially, if you have been working and building something, you could expand your network through a spiritual endeavor, through a creative endeavor. We've got the 12th house is a creative house. Taurus is a creative sign being ruled by Venus, and the Jupiter rules wealth and expansion and broad thoughts. And here we see that Taurus being your 12th house, this could very much offer you an opportunity to have new beliefs that offer you a liberation from where you have been, from the history that you have been told about yourself as you were growing up. This is also supported by Mercury's retrograde in the house of my hopes and my dreams and how I relate to myself within the larger consciousness of the human experience. I think this is super powerful. We are going to see during this Mercury retrograde, we're about to see Venus is in a conversation here with Neptune. And she was in conversation last month with Saturn, building structure to her creative endeavors. Now, for my Geminis, those creative endeavors are pretty powerful because Pisces is your 10th house of career, giving you an opportunity in many ways to get real about your efforts. If you're banging back and forth too much in your twinny way and Gemini way, or even Mercurial way, moving too quickly to come to a conclusion, Mercury in Aries is going to jump to conclusions, and you may be reviewing where you've dumbed down in some ways and not given yourself a wide enough berth for manifestation and co-creation. We've got Mars and Saturn having a conversation about spiritual bravery and how to build structure based on that. And this conversation is going to get more intense, but in a way that feels exciting because they are coming at this from a very, these two planets in the sign of this watery emotion is now extracting the spiritual dynamic of challenge. The 12th house, Pisces, is the house of self-undoing, because sometimes it's so watery that it can be delusional and thinking things are going to get better when they're not. So here, these two planets, which we have known of their existence for over 4 billion years. So in their evolution, or I shouldn't say we have known as man, the planets themselves have been around for 4 billion years plus. So they are evolving here into spiritual warriors. Think about the Knights Templars, people that, that would protect those making pilgrimage for a religious endeavor. And here we see this religious endeavor in many ways for you, Gemini, is to claim your creativity, allow your mind to be aware of your self-talk as your 12th house wants to light up for you and create expansion. The 12th house is also a house where there are hotels, retreats. This is not just a house of being alone and isolated. When we see Taurus energy as the 12th house, we're looking at potentially building something that is going to last, or something that could be ancestral or historic in many ways. You could renovate old homes, there's all sorts of things. But part of this Gemini energy right now is to get down to what is your soul's yearnings. And that's what I think this conjunction is going to reveal for you. Let's go on to the 5th. I'm going to flip my notes, excuse me. Venus will move into Aries. Now, in ancient times, women being powerful and strong was not an attractive quality. And as I said, these planets have been in existence for, north of 4 billion years. So they've been evolving and rolling around this same landscape, but trying to find new perceptions. Because as Venus, while she's in her detriment, she's the ruler here of the South Node and of Libra. Libra is your 5th house of creativity. This makes this your 10th house, which is, I'm sorry, Aries is your 11th house. This is an opportunity to, in many ways, be egoless to the things that you're learning about your self-talk, and allow yourself to assert yourself in a way that feels entrepreneurial, that is really more about you, about the self. The relationship we have with ourselves, the joy of that relationship we bring into our relationship with others. And sometimes when we feel burdened by our own stuff, then other people's burdens are just too much to bear. So here, as Venus enters Aries, and she's entering this house where it's an opportunity to birth my hopes and my dreams. We see the North Node here, and to transform any wound of self into the gift. And as Mercury moves this direction, the planets will meet and they will converse, and Venus will become very aware of her self-talk, if it's working for her or if it's repeating an old story that inadvertently builds resentment. We also see that the conversation with Mars and Saturn is not done, but at the same time, there is a feeling here of of an old story coming back on a subliminal level. We see the moon is about to go over these 2 points here at this first week of April, and it could inadvertently spark an old sense of either obligation, duty, or a sense of, in order to be cooperative, I'll give up what I want so that others may thrive. Mercury also represents, the youths in our lives. So sometimes we don't see that when we exercise our individuality and allow our personal dreams to flourish, we are actually being of generous spirit to others. So Venus's entry into this house, while technically is considered unfavorable, I think there's a new age happening, and this is really giving her an opportunity to say, you know what, this is what I want, and now I'm willing to assert myself in that direction. The 11th house is the future. It is a future that here is indicative of you asserting yourself into that future, rather than repeating something that tethers you back. We are going to see a solar eclipse, the second eclipse of the season. We saw the first one, a lunar eclipse, in the end of March 25th. And I want to bring this up because this is an eclipse that is, usually we have a new moon and a full moon in each moon cycle, with the new moon preceding the full moon. We went and had, because back in the Aries season, I think it was last year, that the moon cycles flipped, and we started having a full moon before a new moon. And this will revert back to its normal cycle in pretty soon. But for now, I think it's significant to bring up because it gives us an opportunity to take advantage of an illumination, or the brilliance and the brightness of that lunar eclipse. Now we can plant the seeds here in this, the sign of it. The new moon is technically in the sign of Aries at the Libra degree. So this is a degree where balance in all things brings an integration of what was once my wound is now the sword that sharpens the corners and what I want in my life. We also see that Jupiter is at the 19th degree, and I think this is offering an opportunity to see more balance in the hues and the ups, the downs, the hairpin turns that we experience on this planet. So this is very powerful because we have a cluster of planets in the houses that represent our deepest wounds on some level, our ancestral wounds, the Pisces energy, which is what is behind us, what we don't see about ourselves, but it's also very creative. We have the house of self, I am, and then the house of I have. And all this energy is going to move into your first house of I think after this, as this month progresses. So the seeds that you, Gemini, plant in this moment can be very powerful for setting up your future. Especially, that 10th house Pisces energy, really, being brave in creating structure. And the very first element of creating structure is not creating a plan on paper. It's reflecting in meditation what your vibrational frequency is before you take any physical action. It's literally determining your belief system and believing the viability of what you want to birth. And if you have a wobble, engaging your team on the other side to be there for you, to help your mind, extract what it needs to move the story forward, versus being paralyzed back and forth between the potentials of the new and what has historically taken place. This is a very, very powerful, powerful new moon. It is also conjunct the North Node, which is just stretching for this expansion, this ravenous experience, and this expansion of the self, of what I want, of how I want to experience my future, Gemini. Okay, now let's go to the 13th. I'm going to go back to 12 p.m. And on the 13th, we're going to really start to feel the intensity of we're already feeling it. Let's not fool ourselves, but this is like now the conjunction is the planets are fusing. They are going to be exact twice, once at 21 degrees and then at 22 degrees. So here, we're feeling this expansion, this craving for a new experience or a 2.0 version of ourselves. And I think that it's very interesting because Pluto is making favorable aspects in this moment to Neptune, which is again sort of asking me to take a spiritual approach, a creative approach, approach that may not feel exactly rooted in the earth. Pluto in Aquarius is really bringing a futuristic way of dealing with my toxic waste. So how I want to put this is that I'm starting to see the wisdom of the dark spots. I'm starting to see that this terrible thing that happened to me compelled me into a direction that I didn't know would be so fulfilling. And that's where I think Neptune comes in and has a real opportunity as it's in the last degrees of its domicile before it moves into Aries. And this is going to be an interesting energy because we've got the god of the oceans, ocean, and moving into the sign in a few years of the self. But this to me again speaks to approaching myself from a much more spiritual place. So I think this is very powerful. Okay, just a few days later, on the 18th, we will see the actual fusion between these two planets. And, this is creating a sextile over here to Mars. And I think that's important because this is about really bravery. This is about how do I want to be a hero? How do I want to assert myself? How do I feel about me and the expansion of me? Jupiter, while it rules foreign people, foreign places, higher education, philosophy and philanthropy, it also rules business and influence and influencers and marketing and branding and publishing, all that kind of 11th house stuff that Aries is representing for you here. So this is really an opportunity to transform. You could even see yourself, if you're in, in a certain business, doing retreats, having an expansion of retreats, building retreats on the internet or webinars, those kind of things. We still see Mercury is still retrograding, but now Mercury's starting to have that real conversation about self-worth with Venus. He's like, hello, how are you? Hey, lady friend, do you feel your mojo yet? Because it's okay to be a powerful woman. And we see Chiron here. All of these planets are with these points, I should say, the North Node, ravenous to experience myself at that Gemini degree, to really experience myself with a certain amount of influence and in my neighborhood, in my sphere. I want to open up. We see Venus here really just in a very reflective conversation with Mercury, really aware of, is my self-talk supporting where I want to go? The sun is about to move into Taurus, and when in no short order, we're going to see Mars move into its domicile. Venus will move into her domicile, and this will give you an opportunity once again to dig even deeper into a powerful way of, I would even imagine, Gemini, that building a more structured spiritual practice. And in that, I'm talking about potentially, declaring daily to the universe, I am enjoying the fruits of my life. I am enjoying what I am building, and then being a little bit more broad about the details, but how it feels, you can get as detailed as you like. And this spiritual practice could be bringing even more bounty and wealth to you than you could even imagine initially. This is going to be I want to say this is going to be an intense energy, but it could really be intensely amazing. And at the same time, it could be intensely illuminating. Like, wow, I knew that, but I never knew that kind of energy. That's where I want to put it. We do see this South Node having an opposition to all this energy up here. So this is, oftentimes people will say, you're so selfish. You're so selfish. I cannot believe how selfish you are. And if you really examine that comment, it's you want what you want instead of wanting what I want, and I'm mad at you about it. So this South Node going through Libra is focused on that very dynamic. and the stretch for your feeling comfortable about your own individuality. Your ruling planet is having, a lot of time to review and to reevaluate and to reassess and to, revamp in many ways how you're approaching a situation and revolutionizing that. Now we're going to see on the 19th, the sun will move into Taurus, but we're going to go to the full moon on the 23rd. And that will be at 4:48 p.m. Now, this is significant for me because this is in opposition to the sign of Taurus. So this is going to be about money. It's going to be about other people's power and control over us, about the potentials of what that power and control might mean. So this full moon it's going to illuminate, I believe, something psychological, something about money, about power ruled through fear, potentially through, sex, I want to say, but sometimes sex isn't actually the act of sex. It's the idea of intimacy or feeling, sometimes when we engage with others, the act of that engagement makes us feel bigger than we feel when we're alone. And so this might be coming to the forefront for you. We see this Jupiter moving over Uranus during this full moon. It's some sort of epiphany about my beliefs. They're going to meet again at 22 degrees. This is not done yet. Uranus moves much slower, but as you can see, we're at 59 minutes here. So by tomorrow, probably Uranus will have been conjunct once again, or for sure by the 25th. And so this is going to be, again, another moment to look at where I've been, where I want to go, and am I hanging on to something inadvertently that I didn't know I don't need to hang on to anymore. We see that this full moon is making a T-square, where the focal point of this is Pluto, transformation and the opportunity to liberate yourself from an old story that is no longer applicable. My channel is very much focused on the evolution of the planets. So while I know everything has a dark side, I'm not going to default to that. What I'm going to do is use that dark spot to empower the planet to its highest vibration. And here, this full moon in Scorpio, and Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, is illuminating some sort of self-worth, some sort of feeling of having to be either responsible for others or others are responsible for me. And there's an opportunity to liberate that through this illumination. Again, we're looking at the sun in the house of my skills, where I have and I make my money. And this is in the moon is in the house of other people's money, where I inherit it, or it's given to me, or it is not necessarily. I mean, we have stockbrokers and financial dynamics here. So I guess there is not completely, you're not being given money outright, but there is an exchange of money in this house. So that's very powerful. Okay. Our next day is the 25th, and I'm going to go back to the 12 p.m. time. And the 25th is a day that most astrologers are zeroing in on, at least the ones I've been listening to, about the conjunction. And I think they're the great, conjunction at 22 degrees. This is a degree that is considered quite powerful and can be rather challenging and dark. It's a Capricorn degree, and it has been the coined phrase, or the key words are to kill or be killed here. So something is liberated, something may die, but something is replaced. And I don't know that it's necessarily a physical death. It could be an ideology. It could very well be something that I realize I get to innovate, look to the future. We see that Venus is here up next to Eris. This is an interesting energy because this is where the evolved version of Venus, where she's actually more comfortable in Aries than she's ever been before, because she understands from Eris Eris is that female energy that Mars is Mars's little sister. This is like the street fighter, the girl that stands up for what she believes in, the one who's got a little bit of piss and vinegar under her belt. And Venus has been having a conversation with her on how to kind of show up as an individual and be brave in her own life. We also see that Mercury has stationed to turn direct, and it's stationed conjunct the North Node. There'll be lots of thoughts that you will have about your own individuality, about entrepreneurship, about taking something that may seem small on the outside and giving it an opportunity to grow big and large as you are brave in birthing yourself in a place you may never have been before. And that never have been before could very well be your 11th house. That Taurus house of birthing yourself in a bigger place. I'm sorry. The 11th house is Aries for you, birthing yourself in that 11th house of on the internet. Either like you could have it be an Etsy, you could have a Patreon account, you could have a thriving TikTok, or whatever the new technology that will be birthed over the next couple of years. So preparing for that, I think, is super, super powerful for my Geminis, because in no short order, this planet is going to go into your first house. And all of a sudden, it feels like the skies are going to clear, and your bravery during this particular period of time of the year will really set up for the second half of 2024 to be much more bountiful than it has been maybe in the past. On the 28th, we're going to see Mars and Neptune conjunct. Now, this could potentially be like water and fire make steam, and this could be pissed off about deceit and illusions. But I'm really, again, I believe that when Mars had its 7-month stint in your first house back in 2022, 2023, Mars really learned a lot about how it interacts with other people. So here, this is the spiritual warrior. This is the one that knows that I'm a be, do, have person. What is my being energy? What do I believe? How am I connected to my higher power before I take my action? This is a more strategic thinker, one that goes into prayer before going into battle. So this is very exciting, because as we pay attention to that, it starts to feel as if we're starting to feel the transformation within the maybe it's control, maybe it's awareness, maybe it's just a feeling of getting a stride for the spiritual warrior within. We still have Mercury in a very tight conversation with the North Node, really wanting to, stretch for that individuality, for that transformation of self that allows me to feel the prowess that I have, that gold medal athlete in me. Potentially, Aries can very much be an athlete. And we're going to go to the last day of the month. And by this time, we see that Mars has moved into its domicile and Venus has moved into her domicile. In what is traditionally the first and second house of I am and I have. Now we transform that into I am broadening myself. I am using my 11th house Aries energy to be brave in how I address my hopes, my dreams, and my network. Maybe some people might even have to go away before you can build a more aligned tribe, for lack of a better term. And here I also feel like Venus coming into Taurus is really using her voice now, and her voice comes from her thoughts. And here we see Mercury on the last day of April at the Leo degree, a degree that would very much speak to your heart and having the courage to speak from your heart. So I think there's a lot going on for Gemini, because I think there's a lot of transformation happening in your 10th house of career. And while there may have been feeling a bit of a squeeze, it is helping to really illuminate what you want and desire, and giving you an opportunity to be brave, not in your action, but in your awareness of your self-talk. And through that, you'll be able to experience more of life's sweeter pleasures. And that's regardless of the atmosphere on the outside world. All right, Gemini, that's it for me for April 2024. Again, my name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer. If you would like to book a reading with me, I am available. My information is below in the description. I'm available for intuitive readings as well as astrology readings. And please like, please subscribe, and please share the videos if you find benefit in them. And I just want to give out a little plug out to Luna Astrology, my favorite vessel for using charts and navigating through the Zodiac. So if you haven't tried out Luna Astrology, do that. You'll love them. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.